Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you.
Ernest Bicknell was born February 23, 1862 in Vincennes, Indiana. He attended IU and graduated in 1887, and he spent his first 6 years after graduation working in the newspaper business in Indianapolis, followed by serving as a secretary for the Indiana Board of Charities. In 1906, while working as the director of the Chicago Bureau of Charities, Bicknell was called to aid the Red Cross in San Francisco, which had just been devastated by earthquakes and fires, and many were in need of relief. His work in San Francisco was admirable, and almost immediately he was offered the newly created post of the National Director of the Red Cross. With the outbreak of World War I in 1914, Bicknell traveled to Europe to direct several relief and aid efforts. He served as Deputy Commissioner to France, Commissioner to Belgium, and Special Commissioner to the Balkan States, as well as serving as one of the members of the several international relief organizations. During his time in Europe, he traveled to both the Eastern and the Western Front. While he was there, he photographed almost every location that he went to, showing soldiers on both sides of the battlefield, while also showing pictures of the devastation that had been caused, along with the people that lived there.
Our source is a photo album made by Ernest Bicknell. This photo album is about the American Red Cross, specifically about how they were involved in the war. Ernest Bicknell took pictures as he traveled across most of the fronts during the war. He was at many of the major battles in both the Western and the Eastern Front, and he documented both sides of the war. He did not limit his pictures to solely Europe. We also saw many pictures from Asian and African countries. This source is an interesting one, as it tells the story of World War I, but in a new way. We see the war through pictures, which allows us to interpret the story in our own way, as a picture is truly worth 1,000 words. In addition to this, the pictures do not show fighting on the lines. They instead show more of what's happening behind the scenes, with pictures of citizens and the Red Cross. This is unique because when talking about World War I, the Red Cross is not what usually first comes to mind. This source is not your usual letters to home or diary of a soldier. Instead, it is a wonderfully put together scrapbook that allows the viewer to see the war through a new lens, a lens that many people have never viewed through before.
The United States, specifically the American Red Cross, provided aid for many allied European countries. Bicknell's photographs have us better understand what kind of conditions soldiers had to endure, as well as some of the local residents that the U.S. encountered. Pictured on the screen are some of Bicknell's photos he took while in Verdun, which is one of the many places the United States traveled to. You can get an idea of how chaotic and violent battles were by looking at the two bottom photos. As you can see, almost all of the infrastructure suffered damage, and some buildings even being obliterated into rubble. Pictured in the top right is a cathedral, which the American Red Cross used as a center to treat wounded soldiers. It seemed when soldiers had downtime, they were able to spend time on their hobbies. It's assumed Bicknell had a huge passion for photography just because of the large number of photos that are taken in this source. When visiting from country to country, Bicknell took photos of buildings, landscapes, and even famous historical landmarks like the Parthenon. He traveled to numerous countries and cities like Venice, Naples, and Greece. Bicknell also took photographs of soldiers and citizens from various countries, which is interesting because some of the cultures were noticeably different than the Americans. Here you can see different Sultan soldiers. As you can see, they often wore big, extravagant headpieces and dressed differently than US soldiers. British soldiers had similar cultures to the United States and often wore similar looking uniforms. Just for comparison, here's what US soldiers dressed in uniform look like. Since soldiers from various countries let Bicknell take their photos, I assume he and Americans were well liked and respected by them. The American Red Cross did not work alone. They received help from local Red Cross members to provide aid for soldiers. The bottom left picture depicts a man carrying coats, and the top right shows a man giving a boy coffee.
Although the pictures Ernest took were great to look at and showed us a different side of World War I, the pictures do not provide us with enough information on who the people are in the photographs or what they are doing with their life. This creates a challenge for us as we do not want to assume anything when analyzing these photos. I would have loved to have been provided more information on what the people being photographed thought of the war and just know more about their everyday lives during the World War I era.
The Yanks are coming, the Yanks are coming, the drums, drums coming everywhere.